All right, welcome back. We're going to be talking about the last phase of discipleship, the promotion, the release to go and make disciples. And today we're going to talk about how you know when you need to release somebody. But first I want to answer a quick question, which is why? You know, why do we need to release? And I'm going to say we've got two big reasons. First of all, it was Jesus's model. He released people to go make disciples. He spent 3 years with the apostles and then sent them on their way to be disciple makers. And were they all the way there yet? No. No, they weren't perfect by any means, but he released them to go and make disciples. And then they went on to do the exact same thing with the people that they discipled. We have pictures of Peter discipling Mark and sending him to make disciples, and Paul discipling Timothy and releasing him to make disciples. So it was Jesus's model. The second thing is we want to create a multiplication movement. All right, exponential multiplication is this idea that if you disciple one person and you disciple them for 5 years, and then you've created a super disciple, I guess. But if you disciple that one person and hang out with them for a year or two, and then you both go on and disciple someone for a year or two, then by the end of like 5 years, you might have 8 people who are disciples of Christ who are going and making disciples of Christ. And that means that over the course of just a couple years of time, the entire world gets to become a disciple of Christ. Okay, cool idea. But to get there, we need to be willing to release people. And I want you to understand, this isn't the end of a relationship. It's just a change. All right, we stopped being a mentor and apprentice, and we've moved now into being co-workers in Christ's field, working together to accomplish the mission that Christ has sent us out on. So like I said, today we're going to talk about how do you know when it's time to release someone to become a disciple maker. Now, there are 3 things that we're going to see in every disciple maker. We've outlined this acronym as PI. It's purposed, intentional, equipped. Purpose means that they are learning to live more and more like Christ. They're becoming more like Christ. And that deals with habits. Intentional deals with, are they actually viewing the relationships around them through the lens of discipleship? And then equip means, do they have the skills necessary to be a disciple maker? And that has to deal with milestones. So purpose, intentional, equip. These are the 3 things that we want to look for in our disciple to know if they are ready to become a disciple maker, if they're ready to be released. Now in our D3 packet, which you can find in the show notes, and the way back there's one more tool that I want to introduce you to. It is called the PI assessment. PI assessment, and in this assessment, what you're going to find is purpose, intentional, equipped, different statements, and yes or no answers to each of those statements. That's all it is. So you're going to read over it. And for instance, in the purpose area, it says they understand the value of the relationship with God and are taking steps to grow closer to Him. Is the person that you're mentoring, are they doing that? If yes, check yes. And then you're going to continue going on. They're growing to be more like Christ through living each of the biblical habits. And you're going to go through those habits and check yes where they're growing and no where they're not. And so through that, you're going to know where it is they still need to grow, where you need to be focusing as you continue your disciple relationship. But if you go through and you can check yes to all those things, then maybe it's time to begin releasing them. Now, next step here is go ahead, grab one of these packets and fill out that PI assessment on yourself, just to make sure that you are actually living purpose, intentional, and equipped as you continue to go on Christ's mission. Now, a couple things to remember. First off is this, and I know I've said this a lot through these trainings, but our goal is to help people grow. We're never going to make people perfect. Okay, so don't give into legalism here. I read a book by Jim Putnam called Church is a Team Sport, and in it he went and he asked a minister, he said, what is it that you would need to see in someone to know that they could be a disciple maker? And he went on to fill out like 3 to 5 pages, just a list of different things that they'd want to see in that person. And Putnam's reply was, you're never going to feel confident in anybody being a disciple maker. And if he's the only one making disciples, then that whole idea of exponential multiplication, well, it's ruined. It doesn't work anymore. So don't get bogged down here. Understand that you need to help people grow in these areas, but you're never going to get them perfect in these areas. You just want to make sure that they have the resources that they need to continue growing and can discover these paths to grow, so that they can continue growing to be more purpose intentional and equipped. The second thing is this: when you're filling this out, where there's a blank, go back. Okay, so if I find, hey, the person who I'm working with is purpose, but when it comes to intentional, they just struggle with actually taking this whole discipleship thing seriously, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to work with them on that. That's what the whole purpose of this assessment is. And the third thing is this: you need to evaluate regularly. And I know I've said that with every single assessment that I've talked about, but that's important. Once a month, go back, fill out this PI assessment with the person that you're working with, because that's going to help you know where they need to grow next. So that's it. Check out our next session to talk about the next steps of release of what happens after this.